This is Rabbi Sachs coming to you from the Chai Center, and welcome to the Chai Academy. So the Chai Academy is a daily classes and courses and topics of Jewish interest, and we just finished a pretty long course on modern day Israel, and you can find it, by the way, at thechaicenter.com/academy, or you can find it on the YouTube channel, our YouTube channel, under the Chai Academy. So each class is going to be self-encapsulated. So if you didn't hear the day before, for the most part, and you can just listen to today's class, and you don't have to worry about that you missed a yesterday's. You can always find it in the aforementioned places. Today begins a new course, I should say, and today's class is essentially the Holocaust, and it's probably not going to be as long as the Israel class. It'll be, I think, shorter, and just different aspects of the Holocaust, and it should be shorter because it's important from a historical perspective for sure. But we as Jews, we need to dwell on living because of the Holocaust, because of what happened, and because of what happened, we have to move on, move forward, be stronger, etc. And if you only focus on the Holocaust, and if you just think only Holocaust stuff, then you're stuck in the past, and you definitely won't. If it's only Holocaust, you won't get the kids. Why would they want to be associated with the Holocaust-driven religion? It's important, admittedly. Okay. So today's topic is going to be on the rise of Adolf Hitler. May his name be obliterated. And he was born in 1889 and he died in 1945. It would have been nice if he was born 1889 and died 1889, but that's not what happened. It's interesting. He became a somebody when he was 34 years old. I mean, if you think about this guy, he was a high school dropout, right? He was a failed artist. In World War One, he was wounded with mustard gas, and then he became a spy for the German government, to spy on the antics of the radicals and etc. And when he was spying on the radicals, he became a radical. So he was easily swayed over to the dark side of the force. Not anybody that should have been somebody, but the timing was right for a man like that to become what he became. Shame on him, shame on them. So Hitler was more than just a racist. He was a racist, but more than a racist, he was an anti-Semite. He hated Jews, and to prove to you that he wasn't a racist, he was more of an anti-Semite than a racist, is that he aligned himself with the Japanese, and he called the Japanese honorary Aryans, right? And he aligned with them because it was prudent, it was wise for him to align with them. He had other names for them as well, yellow and this and the other, but bottom line is he gave them an honorary Aryan status. The Jews, he never gave honorary Aryan status, even if he sought things to be gained. He had things to gain from the Jews. Right? They were influential, etc. But his hate, as we'll see, overrode his common sense and overrode his ability to think strategically. Now, even before he became a murderous bastard, he loved harassing Jews. And his first target, this is like early on in his political life, his first target was the scientists. He used to harass the Jewish scientists, and oh, what are the scientists doing now, etc., etc., to the point where a lot of Jewish scientists left, and um, the ironically, one of the scientists that left was Albert Einstein, who ended up coming to the United States, being, making, being involved and being the leader, the spearheading the atom bomb, which ultimately ended Hitler's reign. So, as I said, the man couldn't think strategically because of his visceral hatred. The question, the question is, what was the source of his hate? Why did he hate? Why did he hate the Jews? Right? There's no evidence whatsoever of him being mistreated by a Jew. There are rumors, non-substantiated, that he came from Jewish ancestry through his DNA, or that his grandmother was working in a wealthy Jewish home and she became pregnant, but there's no proof to it. It's all rumors. It's all nonsense. But there's no evidence whatsoever that he was mistreated by a Jew. In fact, there is evidence that he was helped by a Jew. So Hitler was capable of love. He was, which makes his acts even more egregious. He was capable of love. He loved his mother. He loved his mother. And his mother, she developed a lump in her breast. She went to see Dr. Bloch. Dr. Bloch was a Jewish doctor, and Dr. Bloch recognized right away that this was cancer, and Dr. Bloch didn't want to tell his mother, so he told Hitler. Hitler was devastated, and he asked Dr. Bloch to please help get surgery. So Dr. Bloch managed to get the mother into surgery, and when they opened her up, they saw that it had metastasized, and she had she had very little chance left, and it was time for her to make her final arrangements. Dr. Bloch told that to Hitler. Hitler once again was devastated because his mother was so sick, and he asked, he begged, he implored, he pleaded by Dr. Bloch to please help. So Dr. Bloch found an experimental drug which was the precursor to chemotherapy. It was a type of chemotherapy, and he said that this is a chance. It's a long shot. Hitler said, "I'm begging you, save her." So they opened her up, and they inundated, saturated, soaked her cancer in this toxic chemical that was tremendously painful for her when she woke up, but it did no good. It did no good, and she passed away. Right? Dr. Bloch writes that he's never seen somebody so lovesick and so devoted and dedicated to his mother. Anyway, when the beginnings of the Holocaust and when Jews realized what was going to happen, right? And they started to torment Jews, and the Jews in Germany actually had one up over the Jews in other places in Europe. The Jews of Germany saw right away this is not a good existence, and it's only going to get worse. So most of them fled. So Dr. Bloch contacted Hitler, and by the way, after his mother died, a few weeks later, Hitler wrote a letter, a heartwarming letter, thanking Dr. Bloch, the Jew, for doing everything possible, humanly possible, to save his mom. So Dr. Bloch contacted Hitler, and he said to him that I can't get out of Austria. I can't. I need your help in getting to the United States. And Hitler acquiesced. Hitler gave permission to this Dr. Bloch to leave Austria and into freedom into the United States. So you can't say that Dr. Bloch did right by him. clearly. So what was his hatred? What was it? Why did he hate the Jews so much? So it's interesting because in various books that have been written about him, and also in his own book, his Mein Kampf, 1925, 1926, his own book, his hatred was directed at Judaism, right? And its notion of a concept, notion that there's a God, so it was more against Judaism than Jews, right? He despised what Judaism had to offer, and he once wrote. He once said something negative about the Jews, and goes, "Them with their tyrannical God and their life-denying Ten Commandments." Very telling, very telling. He just wanted to be. He wanted to have no conscience. He wanted to have no consequence. He just wanted to do what he did unilaterally, and he didn't want anybody telling him, or any book or people or morality pointing to him to say it's no good. So he hated the Jews. Life-denying Ten Commandments. And he went to war. He went to war against the Ten Commandments. That's what he did. He went to war, and Jews were were the messengers. We didn't write the message, right? We're the messengers. But so he hated the message, and he vowed to kill the messenger. And he figured if he can murder and kill and get rid of every Jew, then by extension, if he kills every Jew, then the Ten Commandments will be killed as well, and the notion of a just God will be wiped off the place, the planet, the face of the earth. So he was incensed. Clearly, he was nuts. Clearly, he was evil, etc. But his war was with Judaism, and by extension, the Jews. Now, it's interesting. He hated Jews, and he went after Jews even if they abandoned Judaism, if they converted to Christianity, if they became communists and basically turned their back on Judaism. He was very different from other leaders. Other leaders who hated Jews, once the Jew converted, think of these, the Spanish Inquisition, the Christian faith, the Catholic faith rather. The Catholics, what they only did. But if you accepted, you had three choices, right? Get out of the country, die, or convert to Catholicism. That was the Spanish Inquisition in 1492. And but if you converted, you were embraced, right? You were embraced. Hitler didn't matter. It didn't matter. Convert, didn't convert, turn your back, secular, completely irreligious, atheist, agnostic. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. He felt the Jew is the Jew, and communism and Marxism and any other ism was just a disguise, a Jew in disguise, and therefore he wants to get the Jew. And now we need to learn from this, because in many ways he's right, is that according to Jewish law, a Jew that abandoned Judaism is still a Jew. A Jew that converted to another religion is still a Jew. A Jew that's a Marxist or a communist, so he's not a Jewish Marxist. He's a Marxist Jew. He's a communist Jew. He's a etc. So he actually got it. He actually got it that one can never, however hard you try, however whatever you think you're accomplishing by turning your back on Judaism, for a better life, he actually hit the nail on the head. You can't. You can't run away. You just can't. Right? And the people find out that their grandmother was Jewish on their mother's side, right, and matrilineal descent, and they're accepted as Jews, even though they lived their life, for 8 decades as 8 decades of non-Jew. But they accepted. Oh yeah, here's proof. Grandmother on your mother's side was Jewish. You're Jewish. Boom, in. No convert necessary. No conversion. Nothing. They may ask you to go to mikveh as a voluntarily, but just as a demarcation. But you're a Jew. You're a Jew, and there ain't nothing you can do about it, and there ain't nothing I could do about it. So and he got that. He was against all Jewish values. Now, what's interesting is, what were the Aryan values? What was his value? What was his value? So the answer is he didn't have any. Aside from hating the Jew, which he considered a virtue, aside from that, right, hating the Jew and hating Judaism, which he considered, that's a value. The only other focus was as follows: that you have to have healthy blonde bodies, right? And you have to have undying loyalty to one man, the Führer, and by extension, the fatherland. That was it. That was it. Hate the Jew, and be healthy and fit, because you're of the superior race, so you better look good, and blonde, blue-eyed, which he wasn't. I'll never get that, and commit to the Führer. That essentially was the Nazis' value. That was the Aryan value, and shallow at best, warped, off, nutty, and just now. The reason why I say the time was right, for all this to happen, because Germany was responsible, in the most part, for the First World War. Right? They started this war, they elongated this war, etc. And they were punished. They were punished severely. So there was this treaty made in France, right? The Treaty of Versailles, and at that treaty, it was ordered that Germany pay reparations to the countries it went to war against. And the other thing is that Germany must never accumulate a large army again. Hitler was crazed. And he said, this is humiliating to the German people, right? And he says we have to stop the reparations, and we can have an army as big as we want, and we can have an army that can take over the world. So and it was all just to reject the treaty because of that was made because of the horror that the Germans caused in World War I. So Hitler started a party. He started this party with literally a few dozen people. He had a couple of mentors. I forget the names, Lufthansa or something. I don't know. He had a couple of mentors, and just a few dozen. He had mentors, and he had a few dozen followers, and it rapidly increased. Now, partly towards his charisma, which between you and me, I don't see this man having charisma. Right? His mentors, by the way, taught him how to deliver a speech. They taught him elocution, right? They taught him how to present an idea. So he was trained, but this wasn't necessarily a natural thing. But after a short time, he managed to get hundreds, if not thousands, of followers. So they say it's his charisma, but mainly, and this is why again I say the time was right, because there was economic devastation in Germany. Inflation was incredibly high. They say, I once read years ago about a man that gave, he cashed his life savings and he was able to buy 2 loaves of bread. So now, the depression was everywhere. Depression was the United States as well. Depression was all over Europe, but Germany was particularly hit hard because of the treaty. And there was so inflation was out of control. Joblessness was out of control, and Hitler needed a scapegoat. And he said it's because of the infiltration of Jews and Marxists that have caused this. Right? If there's one thing, if the Jew just remained where he was, but now he's in every echelon of government, and he has his hands in the pot. And he used to say, right, it was, I promise you, I'm going to get jobs back to Germany. Right? And his other quote was, the Jews stabbed you in the back. And because people were just so broken, because they were just so economically depressed, they looked up to hope. This is a man that's going to get our jobs back. And he did, by the way. And he did, because of the war. My goodness. And because of the military and the Nazis. And there was just, he did. So part of that, his strategy worked. But so it was very easy for him because people had nothing. So here you had a person who could talk, and he could talk, and he made promises. So he was like a politician that had a glib tongue. He was more eloquent than a used car salesman. And he did. He convinced thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people, ultimately hundreds of thousands, if not millions, to even till today, to join his Nazi party. Now, it's another thing that happened, which actually molded him, it was in 1923. At that time, they had the beer halls. They had huge rooms, and where a lot of politicians in the various counties and the various states of Germany, right? So there was commissioners of each state, but they had these beer halls that were large, and that's where a lot of political rallies happened. So Hitler went over to the commissioner of Bavaria, and he said that we have to march on Berlin. We need to turn this ship around. And he dismissed him. Hitler heard that the commissioner was speaking in Munich. He was speaking in Munich at a beer hall, and in Munich, it was the largest beer hall. It was the most famous, and it was the largest one. So he took thousands of followers, and they came outside the beer hall. 20 people went in, and Hitler fired his gun into the ceiling. Life stopped, and he started to say, "This is a coup, this is a revolution, and we're taking over." And meanwhile, the commissioner of the state, he was hidden in like a back room, and there were thousands of people outside. There was only 20 inside, and Hitler left. And that was considered actually a big mistake at that time. He left the hall to go deal with other crises and other events that were taking place in Munich under his direction. When he left and others followed him, the commissioner escaped essentially, and he lost control of that room. He lost control. It's all the dignitaries that were in that room was no longer under Hitler's rule. And there were marches around Munich, and the military came out and they squashed this revolution. They squashed it. When during these marches, by the way, many of the Nazis, the 20 Nazis were killed, and police officers were killed, and Hitler was arrested together with plenty of others, and he was placed in prison, awaiting trial. At trial, right? At trial, because the revolution was put down, Hitler was sentenced to 5 years in prison for treason. Now, the people, the German courts that put him in prison were actually a lot nicer than he was, because if you were treasonous against him, you were executed. Even something a lot less than treason, you were executed. So they actually were kind, and he was released only after serving 9 months. When he was in prison, he met Rudolf Hess, right? One of the famous Nazis. He met Rudolf Hess, and Rudolf Hess was also part of the putsch, but this is kind of, he got to know him, and they got to talk and plan while they're in prison. And he met Emil, I forget his last name, I forget who it was, but he met another, which was going to be a prominent Nazi, and in prison he was able to first of all strategize. He was able to spew his ideas and his doctrines, and he was also able to write. That at that time when he was in prison, he wrote his book Mein Kampf. And what's incredible about Mein Kampf is that he laid out his plan. He laid out what he was going to do, and for some reason we were powerless to stop him, even though we kind of knew his next moves. So we'll continue hopefully tomorrow, please God. If you have any questions, I see it was a quiet group today, no comments or anything like that. Rabbi@thechaicenter.com is my email address, or you can also comment here. If you would like to review this course, you can find it at thechaicenter.com/academy, or our YouTube channel, The Chai Academy. Be well.